Did you know Higher Ed's premier tech conference, Ellucian Live, is almost here? Join industry leaders in New Orleans, March 26th through 29th. Discover insights and game-changing solutions to unlock possibility and drive student success. Register at elive.ellucian.com.
Epic.
3 higher ed authors, 100 plus college and university presidents, dozens of actionable insights for academic leaders. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education, is now available on Amazon. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. Dr. Joe Salustio back with you here on another episode of EdUp. We are fast approaching 200. See, not true. 575 episodes of this podcast. Pretty soon on to 600. Who could believe it? In just a little over 3 years. We, of course, want to thank you for your support of this podcast. And for those of you that bought the book, Commencement, the Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education, that we put out this past Thanksgiving 2022. 3 months later, it is in the hands of so many influential leaders in and around higher education. We're so humbled and thankful of your support of the book and of the podcast. And people tell me that I thank them too much on every episode. I say thank you for listening to the podcast. Thank you for buying the book, but I'm going to still do it anyway because we are that thankful. We're going to get into a great conversation today. And there's a few people, unfortunately, as I schedule these podcasts, I say that's not true. It's actually Elvin, my co-founder, that schedules me. And for those of you that wonder, I'm now into May. Every day I'm scheduled into May now. And that means if I get sick, I have to reschedule. If my kids are homesick from school, I have to reschedule. If my I have a job, a regular job. If that gets, happens to take precedent, of course, over podcasting, I have to push podcast off. And unfortunately, this gentleman, I had to reschedule him once or twice, but we're going to make it happen. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is. He is Bob Gogel, and he is CEO and president of World Strides. Bob, welcome to the mic.
Thank you very much for having me today.
It's an honor to have you here, and I think we got a lot to talk about. And we always like to level set with the audience who may, let's assume for a minute, somebody has not heard of World Strides. So we want to just have you level set. What does World Strides do, and how do you do it?
So World Strides is the leading provider of educational travel and experiences in the U.S., and we travel with students aged 10 through 35, so young students all the way through graduate students, both domestically and internationally, with the sole purpose of learning about the world in 3D, complementing what they learned in the classroom.
Amazing.
So how does that work? If I'm a student from 10 to 35 and I want to be a part of international travel through World Strides, do I have to be a part of a college, a K-12 school? Do I partner with you if I'm a university or a K-12 organization? How does that whole model work?
Great question. There's two ways. One, I'd say 3/4 of our trips are teacher or faculty led. So there'll be a group of students that go abroad, for example, to Europe, to Latin America, to Asia with their faculty to focus on either a cultural trip, a language immersion trip, a service learning trip, or just plain sightseeing, complementing what they're learning in the classroom. Or students can sign up individually and spend a semester abroad, do a gap year abroad, a service learning or language immersion abroad, or domestically. So it's either you can do it with a group. As I said, most of the business we have, 3/4, is with organized faculty or teacher-led trips. The other is direct sign up. But what's important to note is that we are an accredited academic institution. We don't provide diplomas, but we are accredited by a number of institutions. So that's what we do.
I love it. And I was looking at your website, and this bit here of the website where it says each learner's journey is different, which is why we offer a broad range of programs for groups and individuals. And I look at this and I go, wow, right? Educational travel, performing arts, career exploration, language immersion, study abroad, sports, service learning. Where do you get the most interest? Is it language? Is it career? Is it education? Is it
It's pretty
sports?
much broad. It's pretty much across the the bandwidth. We find that depending on the age group, I think it's just helpful to go back a little bit into the history of the company, if that's okay. Just
Absolutely.
give you a sense of why we do what we do. Um, Company, this is our 55th anniversary this year, which is exciting. Company was originally founded by an 8th grade social studies teacher who had trouble, getting his kids excited about U.S. government, learning it out of a textbook. I'm not sure it would be any different today. And so said, hey, why don't I bring them to Washington, D.C. and see what it really is like, not just read it in the textbook. Rented a bus, took the 14-year-olds to D.C. And not surprising, there was an instant connection between what the kids were learning in the classroom and what they were seeing in 3D in DC. Came back from DC, the kids were transformed. And as a result of that, left in classroom teaching, created the business, and 9.5 million alumni later, which is quite a group. We're continuing to do that business, both for 8th graders. We expanded it then into high school and then expanded it into colleges and then universities and graduate students. And we're launching lots of new programs. We take college students abroad to play sports, performing arts. They sing in festivals, and I too am part of that history. I studied abroad as a undergraduate. I studied abroad as a graduate student. I then had a job that took me overseas 35 years ago to Paris. And we're actually doing this call from my home in Paris. I moved here 35 years ago for a 2-year expat assignment and never left.
I was literally going to ask you that. I would say, where are you right now? Are you in Paris? And I was not expecting you to say yes, to be quite honest. I was expecting you to say, no, I'm in my house in, southern New Jersey or something like that. But it's way more interesting that you're in Paris.
Yeah,
Right?
I am. I travel the world to see our students. We've got programs, all around the world. We've created a new program in Australia with our partner Hex. We've got programs pretty much on all of the continents, and as a result, I am where I need to be. We just created an influencer program for social media in Miami on content creation. So I'll be down there. We've got programs, actually one coming next week to Paris, and I have the guest speakers, which I love to do because I also teach in executive MBA programs. So it's just another chance for me to be with our favorite topic, which is students.
So you're kind of a product of this. And, one of the things that I think is an important piece to touch on here is the change that can happen within students, within, I don't know, their cultural acceptance, their ability to become immersed somewhere else and survive and feel like part of something, their ability to talk with others that are different than them, the ability to feel more worldly. How important is an experience like this, going overseas, to a learning journey?
Sure. I guess as you identified, I am a product of that ecosystem, and each time a student travels with us, regardless of the age, it is a life-changing moment, as we call them at World Strides. Each life-changing moment Sometimes it happens instantly. Sometimes it happens, with a delayed reaction. I know when I was a student here, and the first time I saw the Eiffel Tower, it was like, wow. Right? I mean,
Yes.
it just hit me, right? I now can look at it outside my window every day, and I relive that moment um, every day. For other students, we see that there's a delayed reaction, and they may come back from the trip, and whether it's a 14-year-old or a 22-year-old or a 35-year-old or an adult, you might ask the question, so how was the trip? And oh, it was fine, and that's the end of the story. And then suddenly, um, something happens, and there's a click, and what happens is that there's a big change and a big transformation, and that's why
Oh yeah.
we keep track. As I said, we've got 9.5 million people who have gone through one of our programs somewhere in the world, and every one of those is a life-changing moment. We're beginning to collect those stories now, and every one of them is either a tearjerker or it's a wow. Um, I can't believe that study abroad or language immersion experience or in working in a service learning environment, all of those can make a difference. And it doesn't matter whether it's a 14-year-old or a graduate student. And interesting, the faculty who travel with the students or are on site teaching the students, many of them doing it for year after year after year. Why? Because they see what the difference is outside of the classroom. It's not, it's different. It's complementary to classroom training. But as you can tell, I'm a big believer in travel as part of the learning journey. And we think that's pretty cool.
When you if you have a student who's interested individually or you're working with a group, can you talk about how it's structured, right? I can't imagine that a student or a group just, they come with World Strides and they're just plopped into the center of a city and it's, all right, everybody, good luck. And, we'll pick you up at the end of the trip. Is it, how do you?
That's what you do if you want to go on buy
Exactly.
a trip online or in the old days through a travel agency. Education is built into everything we do. So whether it is a trip to DC, we work closely with the teachers to understand the curriculum in that particular classroom, what makes sense, that what the kids need to learn. If they're studying government, if they're studying history, for example, some teachers want to focus on the history of World War I and II, and they'll go to the Normandy.
Mhm.
Others will focus on Vietnam War, and they'll want to focus the whole trip around different sites in DC or somewhere, right, in Asia. We have kids who 14-year-olds will go to the Vietnam Memorial, third generation who have obviously didn't live through the draft, didn't live through the Vietnam War, but heard about a distant uncle who may have passed during the war, and goes to the Vietnam Memorial. And the teacher knows that, we know that, we help the student find the name of the uncle on the wall, and guess what? Suddenly the war becomes real, the uncle becomes real. It's the first member of the family who got to see what the war really meant, and goes back, and suddenly, as I said, another life is transformed. And that just
Amazing.
happened. That just happens all the time. We also, we'll take a sports trip. Vanderbilt, the basketball team, went to Europe. They played a number of friendly games and competitive games overseas, but the trip also had cultural and historical monument visits across Europe as they went through Italy, France, and Spain. So they get the best of both worlds. They're getting a trip to play a sport that they love, but are also seeing the context of their competitive teams in Italy, Spain, and the UK. And so it's just a constant reinforcement of what they're learning back home, and that makes
That's
all the
cool.
difference.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your
Attention.
It's time for us to solve the puzzle of success in higher education. Get your ticket to Ellucian Live for industry insights, powerful connections, and innovative solutions. From March 26th through 29th, join peers from around the world in New Orleans to unlock the possibility and drive student and institutional success. Learn more and register at elive.ellucian.com. You know that the world of higher education is experiencing evolutions and revolutions. You want to be part of the progress. Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education with insights from more than 100 college and university presidents, will show you how. Get your copy of Commencement, the beginning of a new era in higher education now on Amazon right away. We think you're going to love it. It's
Amazing.
It's cool. Can you, so when you look at, I'm interested in the business model a little bit too. And if you come across, let's say a faculty or a K-12 teacher comes to you and says, hey, I want to take my class somewhere. This is the curriculum that we're discussing, that we're talking about. Do you go proactively and say, okay, you know what, we're going to go, I don't know, maybe it's an art class, right? I'm making this up, but do you have contacts?
You're doing pretty good.
Yeah. Do you have I'm making this up, an art class? Do you have contacts at the Louvre, for example? Do you have a B2B arm that sets up these relationships with public and private?
Absolutely. So if some of the standard trips where the faculty comes every year, wants to take the kids to the museum, to Versailles. If it's a cultural trip, if it's an art, we'll focus it on the art museums in Paris. Some trips will go to 2 countries, some will go to 3 countries.
And are they repeatable? So some of the trips, or are they custom?
Some of the trips, some are repeatable. It really depends on the faculty. If it's an art history class, some of the faculty will say, look, these are the 3 museums I want to go, and that's what we're going to do. And that's fine. We'll organize that subject to availability. We have executive MBA faculty who want to visit India or Mexico and understand the outsourcing industry, and we will organize for them trips and visit companies. We have a whole department that organizes those kinds of company visits in conjunction with the faculty. So as you correctly pointed out, some are custom, some are pretty repeatable year on year because the kids are the same age, and you want to give them a taste of, and that's really depending on the age group, it's here's the trip. And a lot of these students, as I when I was even in high school, I did a summer exchange program to Nicaragua. I learned Spanish, fell in love with traveling. My parents saw that totally by coincidence. There was a ad in the local newspaper, and please don't laugh, by Wrangler Jeans. Do you want to be a young ambassador to Europe? Please write a 100-word essay. My father said, look, you had such a great time in Nicaragua. Why don't you write a 100-word essay?
And you wear
those
jeans.
Were days.
Yeah.
And wear jeans. Well, guess what? You did.
Slam dunk.
We had the old-fashioned typewriters. I wrote my 100-word essay, sent it via snail mail. 6 weeks later, I got a telegram. That's how you heard about things in those days. And I won a trip along with 100 other young Americans across the U.S., 21-day trip to Europe, 7 countries. And that was the beginning of opening my eyes.
Did
When
you
we
have to
take
wear
kids
Wrangler
now,
jeans the whole
I
time?
did have to wear
okay.
Wrangler jeans. They provided 2 pair of Wrangler jeans at the time. They weren't designer jeans; they were
Is this still
Wrangler
a program
jeans.
that's in existence? Because I'm signing up immediately.
It's not, but we're
Okay.
we're now in the business. There was a
Right.
contest, but we're now in the business providing that to students of all ages. We've got relationships with more than 60 U.S. colleges and universities to help tailor their study abroad. Um, and not only do these kinds of trips, whether they're at the beginning of your college career, the end of your college career, whether they're in the 8th grade or in high school, whether they're in a college campus setting where we do a lot of programming for pre-med and pre-law. There are lifetime and long-term friendships that are created. I'm still friends with the people I went on my trip with in 1970. That's a long time to be friends with people. And why? I think it's the experience of learning together and being together, and creates an incredible bond that, at least for me, was life-changing and lifelong.
You get to see in this model, and I'm putting it together, and if I'm planning something overseas, there's a lot of planning that goes into it. It's location, timing, destinations, travel within country. You're taking a lot of the burden of planning off a university or a K-12 teacher or organization, right? To
Correct.
be able to say, here's how this works. We're
Right.
immersed here in this country. We can take you from place to place, and then we can build in the learning that you need to happen to sell this trip, right? Because you've got to sell this trip and get funding for this trip from a university or college, and they're going to pay for it, your K-12 or university, if you don't guarantee there's some type of learning along with it, that it's not enhancing the curriculum.
That's right. I mean,
You're taking all the planning
typically,
out.
all there are some people who like the old do-it-yourself model,
Mm-hmm.
but we have a couple of very strong tenets on how we organize trips. First and foremost, and as a parent of 4 adult kids now, it would have been very important for me as well, is health and safety. Um, People want to know whether they're traveling domestically or internationally, that their students are going to be safe. It's a huge responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, we've got 24-hour coverage with doctors on call around the world that we do in conjunction uh, uh, with doctors in various locations. We've got an operational team and a support team that operates 24/7. So, as you know, even pre-pandemic, there's always issues of airline cancellations,
Yep.
strikes, surprise chaos wherever it is in the world. It's only gotten more complex post-pandemic.
Yikes!
All of those headaches are pretty much offloaded onto us, so that the learning and the travel experience that the faculty member and the students is as worry-free as it possibly can. Are there issues that come up? Absolutely. You've traveled in the airports recently when there have been power outages at Terminal 1 at JFK. And we had lots of groups there the day that happened. Well, you got to move the students, move the destinations. There's lots to do behind it. So you're absolutely correct. We take the worry out of that. But we also make sure that the educational component happens all the time. So every moment that exists on one of these trips is a chance for the student to learn, whether it's learning about life, or learning about their destination. That's really what the focus is.
Yeah,
This
learning
year we're
about
going to
themselves, I'm sure.
have absolutely. This year we're going to have more than just in DC alone. We're going to have more than 100,000 students, 6,500 educators, buses, meals, hotels, flights. The logistics are unbelievable. But that's part of it. But again, education focus. We had, if you allow me just another story.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, what we typically do pre-pandemic is take students to Broadway to get them to understand the history of Broadway, get them a chance to see a Broadway show, sometimes meet the actors. During COVID, obviously Broadway was shut, but we still had some traveling groups as things opened up before the shows opened up, and we took a group of students to the dance studios, the practice dance studios, where the Hamilton cast rehearses. And I'm an easy crier, and I happen to be with a faculty member who is also an easy crier, and it was unbelievable. We had 120 kids, 30 of which looked with the dance captains of Hamilton and were really excited. And the objective was learn a Hamilton dance routine in 90 minutes, right? So a third of the students, no problem, learned it very, very quickly and knew they were going to learn it quickly. A third of the students looked at the faculty and said, "You got to be crazy. We're not going to do this." And then the third were scared stiff, right? They were willing to try it, but didn't know what was going to happen. 90 minutes later, there was 120 students all doing a Hamilton dance routine. You say, okay, that was fun. That was they learned how to dance. But that's not why the faculty member cried, and I cried. What was the most impressive thing about it was that the dance captains, who are professional dancers, were teaching dance, telling the Hamilton story. And the teacher had been, obviously, they knew they were going to see Hamilton, talked about Hamilton before coming to New York, just couldn't get the message across. But the dance captains, in explaining what they were teaching as a dance move, was explaining the whole story of Hamilton and used the dance moves to explain the different roles in the theater piece.
Epic.
And guess what? The kids got it,
Of
right?
course
It wasn't a history lesson; it was a dance lesson. But they learned history, and you could just see it on their eyes. Pretty cool.
That's incredible.
So that's why I think I've got the coolest job.
Well, I'm going to give some numbers here to the audience.
You will learn by the numbers. I will teach you.
9.5 million lives
Alumni
have been transformed through World Strides, where education and personal growth are at the heart of the mission. Bob, what haven't we said about oh God, I hit my microphone. Did you hear that? What haven't we said about World Strides that you would like to say? Anything coming up? Anything happening? Anything? Do you just take a minute or two and plug away anything you want to say about World Strides? And then secondarily to that, tell us what you think the future of education holds for people.
Sure, that's great. So we think that the impact that the pandemic had, sort of, which was either the hybrid model or lockdown and total remote learning, gave both educators and students and parents the opportunity to say, hey, that was fine. It was difficult. It was painful, particularly for the educators. But what we've seen since borders have opened up and travel has opened up is that we are now at pre-pandemic levels. We'll be traveling with over 500,000 students this year. The pent-up demand is huge. We've got programs that we continue to develop for gap years for students who choose to take some time off between high school and college, where they can actually get credit, not lose credit by taking gap year, and that's great for some students. We see big growth in our sports programs overseas. More and more coaches want to bring their teams overseas, again, not just for the competitive games in basketball and soccer, but also to have the cultural experience. Huge interest now in sustainability, climate change, and our programs that we have around those topics. Huge amount of interest. So, where I think the world is going, and we think we have a role to play in connecting all the dots, is creating opportunities to have lifetime learning journeys, to have a lifetime passport where you sort of get micro credentials for every experience that you have outside of the classroom, so that combined with your in-classroom experience, you've got lots of opportunities to expand your horizons when you're in 14, when you're 21, when you're 30, when you're 35. We're also developing adult learning experiences so that you can go. We have a lot of empty nesters who are going, how about us? Why can't we continue our lifetime journey? And it's a great opportunity. So we're pretty bullish about the future. There's lots happening. We've got new products that we continue to develop. We work closely with partners. So we've got right now with, as you know, soccer in the U.S. is increasing every day in terms of interest. We are working with 23 of the 50 states in the Olympic development soccer teams to develop the future players of the world.
Wow.
We've got groups that go down to Disney. 1,000. I joined them last year. I had just a fantastic time. We have 1,000 students every year who go down to Orlando. We have a program called Cook Around the World. These are high school students, culinary students in schools all over the U.S. They come with their teams and they compete. And what a 16, 17-year-old can produce as a meal, it's just unbelievable. My team, I brought 10 of my staff down with me. We didn't win, but we had a great time tasting everybody else's food. We have groups that recently danced with the Rockettes on Broadway.
That's cool.
Tell me that those are not transforming experiences. I was with a group of students recently in Prague. The day they arrived, from they're taking their junior year semester abroad from college. If you've ever been to Prague, it's just an amazing city.
It's on my list.
It's on your list. Well, if you need a tour guide someday, I'll be happy to. You please reach out to me, and I'll take you on a personal tour.
Well, I got to tell you, Bob.
I like your style, dude.
If there's one thing, I know, it's that, and I've been lucky enough to travel to a number of countries. Is it is life changing. It really is, and if you can tie it to education, I don't think you'll ever be the same in a good way. And so happy that we could highlight the work of World Strides and your work, Bob. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen. He's Bob Gogel. He's CEO and president of World Strides. Bob, did you have an okay time here on the EdUp Experience today?
I had a great time, and look forward to talking again. Thanks for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp'd. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for some
Amazing
news It's time to work together to solve the puzzle of success in higher education. Ellucian Live returns to New Orleans from March 26th through 29th to help you unlock possibility for your institution. And yes, the EdUp experience will be there recording live. Industry leaders from all across the world are converging to discover new insights, game-changing solutions, and powerful connections, all with the goal of addressing higher ed's greatest opportunities and biggest challenges. You do not want to miss Ellucian Live. Learn more and secure your seat today at elive.ellucian.com. It will be
Amazing.
It's time to
level up.
The beginning of a new era in higher education begins with you. Order your copy of Commencement, The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education by Kate Colbert, Dr. Joseph Lucio, with contributions by Elvin Freitas. It's higher education's must-read book of 2022. Discover how you can seize the moment to change higher education forever. Commencement, The Beginning of a New Era in Higher Education, now available on Amazon. For bulk orders, contact Kate, Joe, or Elvin.